Good morning, friends. Today we're going to be talking about birth parents, and I have my coffee this morning. And we're going to learn a lot of things today, so stick around for this whole video. You are going to want to miss a thing. So hi friends, welcome back to the channel today. My name is Winter Hendrickson and I have 4 kids. I adopted them all from the foster care system. They are fantastic. They're my children and I love them. I call them my own because legally stated they are my own children. They will inherit everything that I have. So I just want to preface that in the beginning of this video before we get into a very taboo subject in the adoption foster care world, and I feel like it's getting more traction and more recognition, and that is advocating for birth parents. And so if you don't know what a birth parent is, I got the real definition for you so that you will know specifically what it is, and I'll explain it a little bit more. A birth parent referred to as the natural parent in court proceedings and the first parent or biological parent by others. So we refer to our children's birth parents as their biological parents or their first parents. The term referred to that person who conceived the child, or persons if it's 2, who conceived the child, so the people who birthed the child. The birth parents relinquish their parental rights and consent to the adoption. That's one way that children can be adopted, is that the birth parent says, I don't want to have my rights anymore to this child, so there'll be a termination of their rights, they'll relinquish it. Or there is a termination of the rights is where the courts decide it's in the best interest of the child for that not to be their parent anymore, which is extraordinarily devastating and hard and traumatic for the child to have that happen to them. So I just want to preface this in saying that adoption is always, not always, but for the most part, always looked at this like beautiful thing, this beautiful celebration, and it totally is. It's a huge redemption story, and it's beautiful, and I love my kids, and I just love our relationship, and I love what God has made. But in all of their lives, it started with tragedy and a trauma, and even infants whose moms relinquished their rights, their birth moms relinquished their rights, it's still trauma for that child. There still can be PTSD, there still could be some traumatic tremors from that experience, even from birth. It's amazing what our body does when we are separated from our biological parents. Fact, in our state, in our area of the world, in South Dakota, when a child comes into foster care, for instance, this is where we adopted from, they try to get the foster parents and the birth parents in the same room at the same time within a few weeks of the placement to talk about the child and kind of to break the ice on like the awkwardness of it, so that the foster parent isn't holding grudges against the birth parent and the birth parent isn't holding grudges against the foster parent. Because if you can imagine the awkwardness of that situation, a lot of insecurities, a lot of insecurities on both ends of the spectrum. And I've experienced this myself. When I adopted my older 2 boys about 6 years ago, we did not do that. We did not get placed in the same room with their birth mom. We just saw her around, we saw her at visits, but we were never formally introduced. And that has changed since then. And she also spoke a different language, so it was a little different, but they could have got interpreters. So it would have been better for us to meet her and to understand kind of where our children came from and get a better grip and understanding of their culture and who they are. And I just think it's so important for us as foster parents and adoptive parents to recognize that, because it is such a huge part of our child's life. I don't think we realize how much it means to our child to be connected to their roots and to their biological family. Even if they're not expressing it now, at some point in their life, they're going to have to come to terms with what happened to them through being adopted. That child's going to have to come to terms with that and figure out, okay, like, where am I at? Where's my heart? And they have to heal from the trauma of being separated from their parents. And we are working through that right now in multiple facets. As you guys know, we're adopting from China. And in the story of the person that we're adopting, we haven't announced who it is yet. There is a small chance that we could end up finding their birth parents at some point. And I think that would be really awesome for them. It sounds like it was a known abandonment. So that's kind of exciting for us, because thinking about adopting internationally, we lose that little piece of the puzzle for us, and that we won't know their birth parents, and we won't be able to communicate to them about who they were and how they cared about them in certain ways, or how their story played out. I know that it's not always possible for people to reconnect with birth families. I totally understand that. There's a million reasons why you wouldn't want to. But I want us to like stand back and kind of check our hearts a little bit and ask ourselves as adoptive parents, like, why is it that we don't want to connect with the birth parents? Is it because I'm afraid of them abusing my child? Am I afraid of how I'll feel? Will it confuse my children? I think it will confuse your children, of course, but will it be better for them in the long run to have that connection than not to have it at all? So I just made a small list actually for you guys of why connecting with birth parents would be a good idea. And then I'm going to share a story at the end here with you guys. So the first reason is pretty obvious to me. It's for medical records. Like, hey, do you have cancer in your family? It's really important. Like, do you have the BRCA gene? Like, is there liver cancer? Is there like hereditary things that we need to know about our child, and why they are the way they are? Did you drink with your child in the womb? There's just questions that we need to ask specifically, like, to shed some light on some areas of our child's life. When I go to the doctor, sometimes it's frustrating to me that I don't know their family history, and I really wish I would know those things so that I could be a better parent to them, and they could have that a part of them forever, and they could share it with their children, and so on and so forth. So that's a pretty big reason for you to reach out to birth parents, specifically about medical reasons. And then to answer important questions, children will want to know these important questions, like if your child was adopted from birth and the mom decided to relinquish her rights towards that child, the child might want to know, like, why did you decide to do that? Sometimes the adoptive mom, like myself, I would know about that and I could share that with my child. But if I didn't know, it would be good for that child to know the reasons why they were placed for adoption. They relinquished their rights. That could be a lot of closure for the child. If they just always assumed that they were unwanted their whole life, that they were unloved their whole life, and then they found out, oh, but really, mom, she just wasn't in the right place to parent because of XYZ, like maybe because she was 14, or maybe because she had an abusive relationship and she wanted to protect that child, or maybe she was addicted at the time and she didn't want to bring the child into that addiction with her. There's just a lot of reasons why people relinquish their rights to the children, and sometimes we don't see them as a good reason, but maybe it will bring closure to the child to know the reasons why, even if it's a bad reason. And maybe there's some other questions for the child, like culturally speaking. I think this is really important for my children specifically, because we are different ethnicities, to know their roots and why their culture is the way it is. Like, why do the Korean culture paint their face with this white paste, or why do they eat certain foods, or why do you wear these kind of like traditional clothes, and why do you burn sage, like these different things that other cultures do that are foreign to us. It's just so important for us to have them connected to those things. And obviously we're going to raise them in our culture because we have our own culture, me and my husband, and your family does as well. As parents, you have your own culture. So I think those are really important. And then there's biological mirroring. This is another really good reason. We want our children to to see what they look like their features of, okay, where did I get my nose from? Where did I get my mouth from? How am I going to look when I get older? Like, what are these, like, these things that they feel like they need to know? Like, when you look at your biological mother, do you think, like, oh, I look just like my mother? Sometimes, like, when I look in the mirror, I'm like, oh, this is my mom over there. Nope, that's me. Like, we just look exactly alike. And sometimes that brings comfort, you know, like, that your mom is a part of you, kind of, like, in that way, not in a weird spiritual way, just in, like, a comforting way that will bring comfort and healing to your child. I think God could use those things to heal us and to bring us closer to closure. And that's my final point. It could bring healing to your child. It could bring a lot of confusion, but it could also bring a lot of healing. So it can bring a ton of healing to your child if you allow your heart to be brave enough to face your fears and to allow your children to connect with their biological parents or biological siblings or biological cousins or aunts and uncles and grandmas, as long as they are safe. Obviously, we need to be parents, and we need to make sure our children are safe. There's a few forms of adoption, and we're going to be talking about those coming up in the next few months. We're doing adoption awareness soon, so you guys want to stick around for all those things because it's going to be awesome. My last little bit I want to share with you guys on here today is that we recently have connected with our children's birth mother, and we just love her to pieces. And I'm just here to, like, testify that if I can do it, you can do it. God can do something that's yucky, like, that feels yucky, and make it something beautiful. And something that is, like, really dark to you, he can make that really beautiful. And he can really just transform relationships. Like, I think about our kids' birth mom, both of them actually, and I just, like, love them and adore them, and I just think very highly of them, actually. Even though they were in foster care, even though the rights to their children have been terminated, I love them, and we have been praying for their birth mom for years, and I hope to be able to share the whole story with you, and maybe even have her share part of her story, because it is her story to share. So I'm going to try to keep it private for now, but I think there's an awesome storyline coming across here, and I'm excited to be a part of it, and I'm excited to bring you guys along on the journey of connection and to healing and to wholeness. I must admit that our children have had a hard time adjusting to her being in their life again, but, like, overall, like, it's awesome, and, like, overall they're doing good with it, and I just think it's for the best in the long run. And that's, like, a personal decision that I had to make as a mom, and prayerfully go into, like, prayer about whether or not I wanted that to happen. And it was completely my choice, because when you adopt from foster care, as an adoptive mom, you have full rights to decide who can come in and out of your child's life, like, completely full right, because it's a closed adoption, and the state doesn't recommend it, but they say it's your choice, whatever you feel comfortable with. They actually do recommend it, but they don't say it's, like, completely, like, it just depends. It just depends on the situation. Obviously, guys, their birth mom is super safe, so, like, I just want you guys to know that. You don't want to put your children into a situation where they're going back to seeing their abuser and making that a really uncomfortable thing, all in the name of birth family connections. Maybe they can wait to be an adult when they do that, and they can choose that on their own. But you need to make the choices for your child. And it made us question, like, do we want to reach out to our other kids' birth mom and see if she'll want to connect with us as well. So it's going to be a beautiful journey. You guys want to hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss these videos in the next year here. I just feel like God's going to do so many awesome things, and I want you guys to be a part of it. We're going to film it all. So I hope you guys are enjoying these videos. Please stick around for Adoption Awareness in November. You don't want to miss any of that. I have some really cool interviews lined up. I'm, like, praying and asking God that he would give me a few birth parents that would be willing to be filmed and talk about that experience. I think it would be very educational for us and really awesome, and I'm just excited to see what God does. So anyways, I hope you guys are having the best day ever, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.